Record. All right. Boom. Incredible. So we will get started with announcements as always. So starting off with announcements, just make sure that you are talking with your class after the withdrawal deadline, right? So that is tomorrow, Friday, October 17th. And so after the withdrawal deadline, it's always good to get in front of your class, talk to them about like, hey, everybody, we're past the withdrawal deadline, so we're in this class for better or for worse, right? No matter what, we are getting some sort of grade outcome that will be affecting our GPA. After this week ends, we have 5 weeks left of classes, which is actually a little scary, crazy to think about. Like there's only 5 weeks left, right? So letting them know like we have 5 weeks of classes left. It's not a whole lot of time in the semester, but definitely some time to still make a difference and have an impact on your grades. So really just encouraging them to come to sessions to make sure that they're going to get the best, most successful experience that they can in that class. So yeah, just really making sure that we're talking to our students and reminding them that, hey, we're here to help. Make sure that you are completing the returner application as soon as you know your plans for next semester. So as a reminder, everyone must complete the returner app no matter what. So if you are not returning or if you are graduating or if you are hoping to return, no matter what your circumstances are, just make sure that you are completing that returner application as soon as you know your plans for next semester so that we can start preparing for next semester, looking at budget, looking at holes so we can target some of our recruitment efforts for next semester. And then, kind of similarly on that topic, if you are planning on returning and you know for a fact, like you're hoping to work with a specific faculty member with a specific class, as you go to schedule your classes for next semester, just keep that in mind, right? If you are really hoping to work with this Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 a.m. class, like that, you want to like that to be your SI class, and then you register for a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 a.m. class, we just really cannot place you in that class that you are requesting, right? So that's what we just ask that you be cognizant and aware, right? We can't necessarily guarantee placements, but we do typically try our best. So just be thinking about that as registration starts happening over the next couple weeks to be aware of that, thinking towards next semester. If you have not already done so, please make sure that you are signing up for your mid-semester evaluation. That is done with your campus contact. So that form is on Teams in the fall of 2025 folder. So yeah, make sure you sign up for your self-evaluation and make sure that you have your sign up for your evaluation and make sure to have your self-evaluation completed 24 hours prior to your meeting so that we can go in and look at your evaluation before we meet with you. Yeah. Let's see here. Next up, if you're interested in attending the ICSI conference, so that's next June 3rd through 5th, let Sarah know now. We cannot guarantee that we are going to have the opportunity to bring everyone who is interested. It is very much going to be very dependent on funding, but we would love to know just how many people would be interested so that we can go ahead and go to our dean and let her know, like, hey, this is how many people have said they're interested. So we would need this amount of funding, right? So please let Sarah know as soon as possible. You can just send her an email to let her know that you are interested in attending that conference with us. Big shout out to Gabby. You're on the call. Yes. So shout out to Gabby for getting featured planning last week. Brooke also got featured planning. And then also big shout out, congratulations to Cindy for getting featured session this week. So then kind of moving forward over to our upcoming side of things, we do have the next ICSI peer webinar happening next week. So that's the 20th and 23rd, 8 p.m. and 7 p.m. respectively. So that is all about balancing leadership, time management strategies for SI leaders. So that I think is going to be a very good topic for you all to attend and hear some time management strategies as we get into what I always like to think of as crunch time in the semester, right? We've passed the midpoint. We're getting closer to finals, so things are really only going to keep ramping up. So learning some new time management strategies, getting to talk it out with other people is always a really great opportunity. Our next skill meeting topic. So once again, skill meetings, y'all know, are required for new facilitators, but optional for returners. But is going to be all about adapting resources. So kind of hopefully helping with planning. So finding some of those pre-existing already made like worksheets or resources on Teams and how to adapt those for your students and your needs in session this semester. We do have our cross campus game night field day event happening next, not this Saturday, but the following. So that's October 25th. So that'll be start around 4 p.m. till about 6 p.m. ish. We'll see what happens, right? And that'll be on the Gainesville campus. We'll be playing some games, maybe some ultimate football or ultimate frisbee football. TBD, we'll see what the vibes are, right? Once we're there. But even if you aren't, like, if you're like, that's not for me, we'll have some other things going on as well. Make sure it'll be a great time for everybody. So, would definitely love to see y'all there if you are available to attend. Let's see here. All right, the West Coast SI Conference. So that is November 7th through 8th. So that'll be from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern time, so our time. And that is a free conference to y'all as students. So definitely would recommend going to that conference, getting to hear what other people, other students, other facilitators are doing, and hopefully bringing some of that back to enhance your sessions as we head into those last couple weeks of the semester. As a really great opportunity for y'all. And then lastly, on our upcoming announcements, is our end of semester ceremony. So we always have our end of semester ceremony. It's how we wrap up the semester. And so that will be the November 21st, Friday, November 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Dahlonega campus in Newton Oaks 019. So same room as last couple semesters for our returners, but new facilitators, Newton Oaks 019 on the Dahlonega campus. And that is a required event. That is kind of considered like our last leadership biweekly. It's how we end the semester. It's a required event. And so if you do have a conflict with that, please reach out to your campus contact immediately so that and let them know like why you are not able to attend. But the end of semester ceremony is a great time. We give out some awards. We get to really just kind of celebrate all the work that y'all have been doing this semester. And just kind of, we always start the semester together in Gainesville, and then we always end the semester together as a full team in Dahlonega. So end of semester ceremony is always one of my favorite days of the semester. So very excited for that. We do always do it potluck style. We will have a sign up sheet for that once we get a little closer, but wanted to go ahead and be putting that on y'all's radar so that you can be blocking that time off. Any questions, comments, announcements that I missed? All right. Well, then we are going to continue on with our round robin situation series that we've been doing. So, this week, the question is, what is the most dangerous thing that you'd be willing to do? So to give a little bit of context and maybe give some time so that you can maybe think of something, right? The elevator in Nesbitt, which is where Sarah's office is located, there's two elevators. One elevator's been out, and then the other elevator went out last round of leadership by weeklies in Gainesville. And so Sarah was talking to the Gainesville folks and was like, I kind of want to get on the elevator and just see if I get stuck. And we're like, Sarah, that's wild. Like that's dangerous, like whatever. So yeah, so that's kind of what brought this idea of what is the most dangerous thing that you'd be willing to do. So I can start us off. My thing that I think it's the most dangerous thing I can think of, at least right now, is probably skydiving. I've kind of always wanted to go skydiving, just have never done it. But that seems pretty like dangerous, daredevil-ish to me. So I think that's probably my answer, like the most dangerous thing I'd be willing to do. There are many dangerous things that I am not willing to do, though. So, for instance, bungee jumping, not for me. I would not do that, but I would go skydiving. All right, who wants to share next?
You stole my thing.
I was gonna say skydiving.
I've never been, but my mom was actually a skydiver and skydiving instructor in the 90s, so it's on my bucket list.
That's so cool.
Pretty
Is
cool.
she like pro you skydiving, or is she like, I did it too much, so now I'm
Um,
against it?
well, I mean, probably against. She worked at Skydive Chicago, and they were notorious for some bad practices that people died from. So, yeah, so maybe
That
not.
makes sense as to
Yeah,
why she would be against.
yeah. I guess I can. I'll go to Maggie.
This one is like super unrealistic, but I don't know why I feel like I could hike Mount Everest. It's probably the most dangerous thing I'd be willing to do. I'm like a scaredy cat, and so, but like with hiking, I feel like I could do it. I love to hike, and I know I probably couldn't make it, but I'd be willing to try. Yeah, that's it. I'll pass it on to Maya.
Um, so like I honestly like the most dangerous thing I'd be willing to do is I'm a scaredy cat, so it would take a very big scenario for me to do that, but like if like something were happening to my sister, like if a dog attacked my sister, like I would go fight the dog, or like if she was going to get hit by a car, like I would save her or try to save her. Um Unfortunately, the thing is that I am the less perceptive one of the two of us, so she would be the one saving me, and she has pulled me out of the way of cars coming my way. So I don't know how realistic that is, but like I do have the willingness, just not the observational skills. So I guess like take care of my sister.
But needing a little bit of pressure to jump in and do those things.
Yeah, I'm a scaredy cat.
Okay.
Um, I guess I will give it to Zaki.
Um, it's funny because I mean, like, what do you mean dangerous in? Because I mean, I'm taking Occam right now, so like that's pretty dangerous. Uh, but other than that, I think I would. I was thinking like probably like go down the whole med school path, but that's pretty scary.
What was that? I didn't really hear you. Sorry.
Like go down the med school pathway. That's pretty
Oh,
scary.
med school pathway.
Yeah,
You know, we each have our own kind of sense and feel of danger, so I'm here for
yeah,
that. It's a good answer. It's a unique answer. I like it.
yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank y'all for sharing and continuing to share. But we are going to jump into it. And I have typically been in the background doing working on things, so cannot for sure remember. But if I'm remembering, oh no, I'm clicking the wrong thing. If I'm remembering correctly, we did not get to like creating a homework last week or last time, correct? In this biweekly?
No.
Perfect. That's what I thought. It's all good. So just what so essentially what happened is in the other biweeklies, last week was all about the lack of consensus. So to get some practice with getting consensus, um, yeah, like lack of commitment, not consensus. I was like, that's wrong. But anyway, lack of commitment. To kind of get some practice with getting that commitment, we had each group of biweeklies come up with a homework kind of going over having something to do with the three dysfunctions that we had already covered. So instead of kind of talking about what we did for homework, since we didn't have homework, who can remind me what dysfunction number one was?
I guess I'll go. So I don't remember like how it was phrased, but it was basically like not trusting each other, I think.
Yeah, it was the absence of trust. So good job, Maya. All right, who can tell me what dysfunction number two was?
Is it fear of conflict? Yes? No? I think it's fear of conflict.
You
You're
posed
getting
it as
wait
a
time.
question.
You got
You're
wait
getting
time.
wait timed. You got
You posed it
I
as a
know. I
question. I
was
was
like,
waiting to see, you know?
I think,
But
yes.
but yes, it is the fear of conflict. And then last week we talked about, I know I literally just said it, but what was it?
Lack of commitment?
Lack of commitment. I will say that seemed to me, I don't know if that was a like, we're a little nervous to share on mute, or if that was a like, we're struggling to remember. So I will just throw in that friendly reminder of it's never a bad thing to be taking notes, and maybe we could look back at our notes. So as we go into, I say that as we go into this week, which is the fourth dysfunction, which is the avoidance of accountability. So very much like it says, not having people hold each other accountable. But before we get too far into this, um, that's what I meant to do. It's all good. What we wanted to do is start off with a think, pair, share. So, and just really kind of thinking about like what is accountability and like what does it mean to hold someone accountable? Hold someone accountable. Whose responsibility is it to hold team members accountable? And like what is required for accountability? So, we're going to do it true think, pair, share style. So I'm going to give us 2-ish minutes to think about this on our own. Then I'll throw us into some breakout rooms, and then we'll come back and have a larger group discussion. So, like I said, we're going to do 2 minutes starting in 7 seconds because that'll be a nice even number that I will be able to remember. All right, 2 minutes starts now. All right, so that is our 2 minutes. I did go ahead and drop these questions in the chat just because we're about to go into breakout rooms. So in case you forget them, you should still be able to see them in your breakout rooms through the chat feature. But we're going to spend about 5 minutes in our breakout rooms, just kind of talking about our responses, these to these questions with a partner in our breakout room. So I'm going to go ahead and open those. All right.
Oscar, can you, if you don't mind, I just want to like write it down. So week 2 was fear of conflict. Last week was fear of committing.
Yeah, so last week was a lack of commitment is like the technical title.
Okay, lack of commitment. And this week is something about accountability.
Avoidance of accountability.
Right.
All righty. Well, hopefully y'all had some good conversations. Seems like we're all back. So now comes the share portion. Y'all know how this works. What did y'all talk about?
I mean, we talked about everything. That was we talked about accountability. So Gabby made a really solid point on the first one, where it says, "What does it mean to hold someone accountable?" And I really loved it that she said that it's making sure that people are once they're given instruction, they're kind of like staying up to it and making sure that you're not like holding someone when you hold somebody accountable, you don't like kind of interrogate them, but you make sure you don't make them feel guilty. And yeah, I might
Yeah,
have
and I
butchered,
think
kind of butchered what she said, but
no, I think sorry, I was my cat. So, I think what I had mentioned with that was that you need to like when you're holding somebody accountable, I think it's pretty important to make sure that they like understood the assignment that was given to them in the first place, and that you can communicate what was not done effectively and in a respectful manner, so that you're not just like attacking somebody, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what I said with that. I think that covers it. And then we did kind of go into the second question a little bit. I'm going to keep talking because I don't like silence. Um, with that second question, we did kind of discuss how I mean, it is everybody on a team's responsibility to hold somebody accountable, but definitely to like different levels. Like, there's only so much that I'm going to do as another facilitator for it to like to hold another facilitator accountable. But, a mentor, you, Oscar, are going to obviously be a lot more responsible for holding somebody accountable. I don't look at people's planning sheets to make sure they plan for a session, or that is not my responsibility.
We mentioned how going based off of that, what's required for accountability is responsibility. And so somebody who is accountable is accepts their responsibilities and is committed to what they're supposed to do.
Any other thoughts? All right. It sounded like maybe that's kind of what we were talking about, getting at. I love it. Um, what does it feel like when like someone holds you accountable? I'm curious.
depends on how they're doing it. So if they're like rough and tough, then I'll probably be like, um, probably won't really want to listen to them. But if they're like respectful, then I actually kind of appreciate it that they're looking out for me.
Yeah, I really agree. It's a big part of the way that you deliver it, right? Like if you're just being like, "Oh, you suck. You didn't do this like you were supposed to. Why didn't you know that?" Versus like, "Hey, when you're doing this and this, just make sure that this, such general terms, just make sure that this is done. Um, but yeah, big part of the delivery. But yeah, if somebody gives you good feedback on something, then I really do appreciate it.
100% agree with what Gabby said.
I love it. I can't help myself. I've been like wanting to bring in what's coming next, but like I've been trying to hold back, but now I'm like, no. All right. So, kind of looking back, how do we feel like this, like, how might we think like an absence of trust? How might that play into this, like, avoidance of accountability?
Sorry, I'm cutting out. Did you ask about the absence of accountability?
So, like, how might an absence of trust, like, be connected or play into like an avoidance of accountability?
I'm thinking it could lead to micromanaging. Like, if you don't trust someone, you might micromanage them. And if someone is being micromanaged, I would imagine that they might actually be less productive because someone is always hovering over them. Like, um, what is it? Like, um, like they may comply, but they may do it in a more inefficient way just because they're being followed through every single step of the way. Like maybe they know what to do, but because you're following and like harping on them, they're not doing it as well as they could be. I don't know. Like I feel like micromanagement might cause someone to be less likely to like follow through.
I was also thinking like within team members themselves, like if you're on a team and that team is all put on the same assignment and you don't trust your team members to do it, right? And you think that you're the only one who's really going to do anything, that can hold you less like you'll hold yourself less accountable for getting the task done because you're like, well, I'm not the only one who didn't complete it. It was the rest of my group members too who didn't complete it, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, and when we go back to kind of this, so going back to our second leadership biweekly, right? This is kind of how we outlined and defined trust. So trust is the confidence among team members that their peers' intentions are good and that there's no reason to be protective or careful around the group, right? So if we don't have that sense of trust, if I don't feel like your intentions are good, I might view you as trying to hold me accountable as like you trying to bring me down or make it to where I can't get a promotion or, fill in the blanks here. You can catastrophize in whichever way your brain chooses to catastrophize, right? But like, if I don't think that your intentions are good, like, I'm going to feel like I have to be protective. And if I feel like I have to be protective, I'm not going to, more than likely, I'm not going to accept that I am going that like you trying to hold me accountable is for my own good, right? Or if it's me trying to hold someone else accountable and like there is that lack of trust there, like what if if there is that lack of trust there, it may be the sense of like if I try and hold this person accountable, like they may try and like find some little micro thing that I'm doing wrong and like point that out, right? So definitely like this sense of lack of trust can definitely play into the avoidance of accountability. So, absence of trust, we talked about that one. Now let's go into our next one. So, the fear of conflict. How might the fear of conflict come into play with our avoidance of accountability?
I mean, if you if you fear conflict, then like you probably want you will avoid accountability. It's kind of straightforward.
Yeah, right. Like when we think back to conflict, like we're having like two different sides, and right, we typically are feeling very um passionate, right? When we're talking conflict, ideological conflict, supposed to be passionate about what we're doing, right? So it might be scary to approach this and kind of potentially address this more like interpersonal conflict of like, I don't want you mad at me because I'm telling you like, hey, you aren't doing your job. But like a lot of times when we're talking fear of conflict with accountability, we're talking about like that fear of that interpersonal conflict. And so then last but certainly not least, our third dysfunction, lack of commitment. How might that play into the like avoidance of accountability?
I mean, I feel like that one is like the most straightforward. If you are not committed to something, then how are you meant to hold yourself accountable for doing any of it, right? Because you don't even really want to be doing it in the first place. So it's really hard to put a sense of responsibility on yourself.
Yeah, if you're not committed yourself, then I think you're less likely to hold someone else accountable because, I mean, you don't have it yourself, so you wouldn't really care for others.
This one's a little bit funny because I mean, I think like I can apply it to myself too, kind of like how I set like a time, like I'm gonna get my homework turned in by this time, but I end up not doing it because maybe I'm not like committed to like actually doing it, or maybe I don't like the subject or something like that. So I end up like not holding myself accountable because I'm not committed to it.
Yeah, Sarah Tracy and I some of the time, I was gonna say all the time, not all the time, but somewhat frequently, have conversations of like, commitment versus, oh gosh, what is it? I can't, the freaking wording of it all is like interest versus commitment. Like I might be interested in doing something, but like, am I actually committed to doing that thing, right? And so when we're talking about like teamwork and like getting that commitment, if we look back, we were talking about it last time, right? For commitment, we have to have that clarity and that buy-in. So I think a lot of what y'all were just talking about is like you have to have that buy-in, right? If you aren't bought in, you don't hold each other accountable, right? But I think it's funny because without saying it, y'all were also talking about the clarity piece earlier in the sense of like Gabby and Zachy, what y'all were sharing of like the like rules like of the assignment. Like we know the things have to be clear because if like I'm like, all right, we're all gonna do task A, right? But then it's like task A has like how I interpret task A looks very different than maybe how Gabby interprets task A, right? And it's like, if it isn't exactly very crystal clear of like what it is we've agreed to do, then like we can't hold each other accountable, right? Like because it's like, what are we holding each other accountable to? I don't really know because it wasn't all that clear, right? So that was a good conversation around kind of, what exactly, how the avoidance of accountability kind of ties into the other three dysfunctions. But kind of moving on, and this kind of gets at the question of like who holds, like whose job is it to hold someone accountable, right? And so Lencioni talks about like the most effective and efficient means of maintaining high standards of performance on a team is peer pressure. There's nothing like the fear of letting down respected teammates that motivates people to improve their performance, right? So I think a lot of times when we hear peer pressure, we think bad, someone's going to ask me to do drugs or smoke pot, like very like Red Cross, like, like don't fall into peer pressure, right? But like sometimes peer pressure can be a really like good thing that propels a group forward, right? Obviously, if it's like peer pressure to do something like something illegal or like to do drugs, right? Like that's maybe not so great. But like peer pressure to hold yourselves to a high standard can be a really good thing, right? I always think of when I was an undergrad, the campus ministry that I was a part of, like we had our own like house type of situation, and like the director was always like I was on the leadership team, and he was like our director was always like, y'all, like we've got to clean the Wesley house, like we can't just like leave dirty dishes in the sink, like it's not okay, right? And then we're all like, yes, makes sense. But like we weren't committed, right? Like we didn't commit to that. And then like a few years ago, it got like what's the word? I can't think of the word. Words are leaving me today. But essentially it got like condemned because it was like infested with rats. Right. And so like a lot of times like you are going to feel a lot like that peer pressure can be really good in the sense of like if you're doing something for a good cause. But yeah, so like really just like recognizing like when we're talking accountability, like yes, there obviously is going to be that sense of like leader to follower, like holding them accountable, right? But for instance, NSI, right? Sarah, Tracy, and myself, there's three of us and like 50 something of y'all. Like we can't be on top of everything all the time. And so that's really where that peer to peer, and when you're working on like a really good team, that sense of peer to peer accountability and holding each other accountable can really come into play and really help kind of bring everyone together to work towards those goals that you've committed to and hold each other to actually reach those goals. And so then we also wanted to talk a little bit like when we're talking about accountability, sometimes accountability can be hard because we were kind of talking about it earlier, but like that, like kind of interpersonal conflict and how we respond to conflict, or not conflict, but like being held accountable, right? Like a lot of times we're being held accountable because we are missing something. We didn't do something that we agreed to do, right? And so that can bring up like this sense of shame versus guilt, right? And so we, I think, just personally as a society, have gotten pretty not so great about like distinguishing between the two. And so a lot of times we kind of use them like the same, but there is a difference between shame and guilt. So shame is essentially like that feeling of like, I am bad. Like me as a human, I am bad. Like I'm a bad person, XYZ, right? Versus guilt is like, I did something bad, right? And so when we're talking about accountability, and if we do truly have that trust that we were talking about, when we're holding each other accountable, we're hopefully going to be getting more of the guilt, right? Like, I did something bad versus like the shame of like, oh my gosh, I'm a bad person. I didn't submit my plan. That makes me a bad person, right? And so there definitely is that place for guilt on like when you're holding account, like when you're holding people accountable, holding others accountable. But I would just say definitely be on the lookout for some of that like shame speak and shame talk of like when you catch yourself, or if you hear you're trying to hold someone else accountable and they're like, I'm a terrible person, I'm so sorry, like, you know, like be like, hey, like you aren't a bad person, right? You just didn't do this thing that we agreed to. It doesn't necessarily make you a bad person, right? And so really just making sure to be on the lookout for that shame talk, and especially like as you are maybe being held accountable, watching for some of that shame talk that may be going on in your head and being able to recognize that of like, oh, like I'm going into more of a shame spiral than like guilt. Because once again, it's okay to feel guilty. Like if you did something bad, like, or didn't do something that you agreed to do, right? Versus like, I am bad. When a lot of times when we truly have that trust built up amongst our team, right? If I truly believe that like you aren't coming at me with like bad intentions, like I shouldn't feel like I am bad. Um, so just really quick wanted to kind of throw that in as well. I am probably just gonna go ahead and go over here just for sake of time. But so this is our kind of red flag, green flags that we like to cover each week. But so like members of teams that avoid accountability are over here in the red. Teams that hold each other accountable are in the green. I'm going to stop talking for 60 seconds so that we can read through these, just so that you have the time to read through them. But then we are going to continue on so that we can make it to our last activity. Alrighty, so I think that was about 60 seconds. I'll be honest and say I couldn't remember the number of seconds my watch was at when we started that, but hopefully you got that down, took a picture, whatever you wanted to do. But we are going to move on to, like I said, this is going to be essentially our last activity for the meeting. And so, like, obviously, we call it like right to left. Obviously, we are not a like in a physical room together. So what I want us to do is essentially when we say like right to left, what we're going to do is kind of work through this scenario. So we're going to start off with the person on your right, and so for us on Zoom, that can be the person on your right, like on your screen. So like for me, I have mine vertical. Yeah, vertical. So like Gabby's right underneath me. So like Gabby would be the person to my right. So everybody take a look at who is on your right and then who would be kind of on your left. So on the opposite end. So like for me, Maya is like at the bottom of my list. So Maya would be on my left. Gabby would be on my right. And so what we're going to do is just take a minute and kind of think through like, all right, so we're looking at this situation. Your colleague, so the person on your right, has a session before yours in the same room. Each week they continue session for the full hour, which means you consistently have to get into that room and start your session late. So what might make you pause or avoid holding this person accountable? So specifically the person on your right accountable, what would it look like if you did try and hold the person on your right accountable? And then what are the consequences, short and long, if you don't hold them accountable, right? So we're going to think through that for the person on your right. And then you're also going to do the same thing on your left. So I'm going to give us, we are running short on time. So I'm going to give us 60 seconds to kind of think through what that would look like. Once again, for the person on our right and left. And then we'll come back together and talk about that for a little bit. All right. I know that was a whole lot of time in terms of like, thinking through each of these questions for both the person on your left and right. But what did we kind of like consider kind of any particular answers to like these questions? Did it look different for the person on your left or right? Why did it look different? Anything like that, would love to hear from y'all in these last couple minutes that we have.
I'll go. So, I mean, for the like difference between the two people, for me, it looks like you're on my right and Maggie is on my left. So I feel like the fact that you are my campus contact would make that interaction a little bit different in the sense of like if you were holding session and it was running longer, I might not like immediately go to you and ask you like about like why your session is running longer because I would think you might know better than I do. Like you have more experience, so maybe there's some like extraneous circumstance going on. Um, Compared to another SI where I know like, hey, like we're kind of on an equal level where we have the same amount of experience. Honestly though, like the way it would look like to hold people accountable, like I think I would just like go up to both people and like have a nice conversation, be like, hey, like I'm just checking in, like your sessions have been lasting a little bit longer and it's really affecting my sessions as well. Like to just have like a nice conversation. It wouldn't be that different from that point on, I feel like.
Thank you for sharing, Maya. Yeah, and I think that's a big thing too, right? Like even though like, right, like I'm your campus contact, like I'm your boss, so to speak, right? Like doesn't mean that like I just get a free pass, right? Like I'm having an impact on you and your students, right? Like obviously, like you said, we want to be kind, understanding of like maybe there are some extenuating circumstances going on, but like what like I think that kind of leads into the short and long term. Like short term consequences, I think of like, all right, like if it's me having to start session late, like I'm getting started with session late. I'm a lot more frazzled at the beginning, which means I'm not showing up for my students the way I want to show up for them. Longer term, I'm just going to be building up resentment if I like don't hold the person accountable or don't have that conversation. And so that's another big point from like this kind of section specifically is that like a lot of times people think, and it kind of goes with that fear of conflict too, of like not holding someone accountable or not having that conflict, talking out that conflict that you need to have with someone can seem like the best answer, right? Like, I have a really great relationship with this person and I don't want to ruin it, so I'm just not going to bring it up. But ultimately, that typically just builds up resentment and builds up resentment till the point where you're like, I literally hate this person. And it's like, actually, like, it's truly just, I didn't have this conversation with them. And now, like, someone who used to be my best friend is now, like, all of a sudden my enemy. So, definitely encourage y'all to think about that. Also, just make sure to, like, think about like what make you pause or holding that person accountable and then just like knowing those as kind of your warning signs of like, oh, I might not be holding this person accountable. Like that's going to be really good information for y'all as well to know, like you as yourself, this might be my warning sign if I may be avoiding this accountability conversation. But like I said, I want to be respectful of y'all's time. I know we went over the 50-minute mark, but thank y'all for sticking around. Thank y'all for sharing this. These were some wonderful conversations. We will continue on next week. We'll go into the inattention to results, which is the last dysfunction of the 5 dysfunctions. And then we will have one more leadership biweekly after that, where we'll do a wrap up. But thank y'all for being here, and I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday and a great weekend.
Bye, guys.
You too.